Today, our guest is Amrit Singh, a Toronto-based registered acupuncturist and founder of Six Bay Beauty, a movement to celebrate women in all our glory. Her mission is to let women know there's an option for youthfulness, health, and beauty naturally through acupuncture. Amrit also writes on the intersection of health, hip hop, beauty, art, and acupuncture. Welcome to Beauty as a Birthright, Amrit.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, we're so excited to have you. So we'd like to kick off our conversations with guests because, we started this podcast understanding that beauty is this evolving concept. So we always like to ask our guests, what is the most beautiful thing about you today?
My ability to travel and go out and not get sick.
Yeah.
I was honestly thinking about like, that is such a beautiful thing. I used to get sick all the time. And now I'm just at a place in my life. I haven't had a cold in 2.5 years. And I used to get tonsillitis and, we might get into this, but I've been diagnosed with colitis and I dealt with that for 10 years. I'm like, I haven't been sick in a long time. So I identify that as beautiful.
Wow. Is it because you've been do you think it's because we were in quarantine for so long and not socializing with other people or something that you've been doing?
I think that's part of it. Like I didn't have the same workload as I had previous years. The clinics, I don't think that has anything to do with it because I was always wearing a mask in the clinic, like for cosmetic anyways. I learned that from my Japanese acupuncture teacher. He would not let me do cosmetic without a mask. And so I think it was just, the workload just being less. And then I think also just physically my body's changing. I think I feel like I'm getting stronger and healthier as I get older. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I think it's interesting how in these 2.5 years that we've been in a pandemic, it's been the healthiest you've felt and you haven't actually gotten sick. Mm-hmm. It's such a juxtaposition to, what a lot of the population endured the past couple of years, but definitely testament to how you're cultivating your health. And I love that is what you brought. That's what you shared with us today about what about you is the most beautiful today.
Yeah, being healthy.
Oh my God, that's such an accomplishment. Yeah,
totally.
Right. And in Chinese medicine too, health and beauty are like married, they're not separable. And
yes.
Yeah. So Amrit, you identify as Punjabi Indian and you grew up in Canada. You're currently now in Toronto. Can you share with us what it was like growing up as a South Asian in Canada and how that influenced your understanding of beauty and your own beauty?
For sure. So I'm in Toronto now, but I grew up in Winnipeg. And so now Winnipeg is a smaller city. Like even now, we don't even have 1 million people. And back then when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of people of color. When I lived downtown, I was in daycare and there was, and then we moved to the suburbs to be in a more safe area. And, and then there weren't really any people of color. And that was really hard for me. And then, when you started caring about your looks, when you hit like grade 7, onwards, it was, what was it? It was Britney Spears. It was Christina Aguilera. And, nobody really nobody liked me. Like nobody thought I was pretty. And I was like, okay, nobody. And at a young age, I remember having these very conscientious thoughts with myself that I'm like, okay, you're never going to be pretty. So what are you going to do about that? And I was like, okay, well, I can be smart because I'm good at school. I've always been smart. I'm like, so I can just be smart and I can be funny. And so I was really loud in class and I was very disruptive, but the teachers couldn't do anything because I was an honor roll student. And so that became my thing.
The smart funny girl.
Yeah. Because I was never going to be the pretty girl. I'm like, okay, that's okay, but I can still have friends and be cool this way. So that's how I'm going to maneuver my life this way now.
Was that helpful growing up? Because I'm thinking like, okay, for middle school, yeah, but then high school, like it's just a whole other experience. We become more aware of how we look in comparison to other girls.
So grade 10, then things changed because for us, 7, 8, 9 is junior high, and then 10, 11, 12 is high school. So grade 10 changed because then there were more people of color. And like, this was the first time like that I had seen and been around like Black Caribbean people. Like, I'm talking about, this is the lack of people of color. There were a lot of Filipinos. That was a major cultural group that's in Winnipeg. But other than that, there was really nobody. And so like, it was like high school, and I was just like, oh, look, we have Caribbean people now. And now we have East Asian people now. We have more Indian people. And then it was like this mix. Winnipeg's better now, but like, I only started experiencing that late in grade 10. There was nobody like that before.
So did you still have to keep up your reputation as this funny honor roll student, or were you becoming more comfortable having your pigmentation and other people around you, that changing as well?
I learned at grade 10, something switched, and I learned how to do my hair and my makeup.
There's always like that switch. Like, it's just,
it was a switch. I actually remember being in the mirror and like doing the cat eye, and I was like, oh, I'm like, this looks kind of cool. And then
I would need to know before this, like, how, because I feel like I hear myself in your story, and I'm like going back to my grade 7. How did you like come to find makeup? Were you reading like 17 and like and like looking all that and like trying to, and most of them were like white faces and makeup for white people. And so trying to emulate that to your face, or was it something that you were just experimenting on your own?
I didn't. Okay. So when I first started wearing makeup, I wasn't really allowed. Like, my parents were very strict. And so I was allowed to have a lip liner. So that's all I think I had for 7, 8, and 9. I didn't have anything else. And then grade 10, I guess I had a job. So I guess I just went and bought it then. And then, I must have learned, like, I mean, I say cat eye, but I really shouldn't, because like in our culture, like that is how women have been doing eyeliner for hundreds, if not thousands of years, that's what we do. And that's probably where I picked it up from.
Yeah.
No one was teaching me. My mom doesn't wear eyeliner. And so I remember being in the mirror and doing that, big eyeliner. And I was like, okay, this looks kind of cool. And then I went to high school and people were like, oh, Amrit's so good at makeup. And then I had a friend, Susie, and she also did the same thing, but she was really good at hair. So we had this, what
was her background?
She was Portuguese.
Oh, okay.
Another very big cultural group.
Yeah.
In Winnipeg, especially in our high school.
Hey, Susie.
And so she was like, so then we both kind of like were learning from each other. And then it became this thing. We were best friends, that like Amrit and Susie have the best hair and makeup. And then it was a switch.
Wow.
It was a very vivid switch.
So then did you go from like funny, smart girl to hot girl who knows how to put on makeup and do hair?
I guess I guess if you were to look back and this was like, in the American teen movies, then yes, I was sitting with the hockey boys and the football boys and like having the high school experience that I dreamed of. Like, I couldn't wait to get to high school, and I was finally having the experience that I wanted. Yes, I did. But it didn't last long. It didn't, because then I went to university.
I was going to say, then what was college like?
Didn't matter what you looked like. And my high school was notable. Everybody knew Maples Collegiate. That was my high school. And that, the girls at Maples Collegiate were like this. And so when you met people like, oh, what part of the city you're from? Like, oh, I went to Maples. They'd be like, oh, you're a Maples girl. Like, they just knew. But yeah, so then you go to university, and I was only 17 when I started university. I was really young, and everybody was 20, and they were more, and I was at that time in arts because I was doing psychology, and they were more, they were more artsy people, and nobody cared about hair and makeup. And I was like, like, just like, nobody cares about me. Yeah.
Well, then what identity, like, what did you take on at that point then? If like your hair and makeup weren't as important to other people.
Yeah. So it was an interesting time, because then I was kind of lost. Like it was because I identified so much with that in high school. And so to your previous question, I still maintained honor roll because I still had brown parents. Right? So I had to. But I didn't have to be like the funny one as much. And I wasn't as disruptive because then I could be like, oh, guys think I'm pretty now. So it's okay. I can tone down now. I don't have to be so out there. And so in university, yeah. And my mom, she's the one who called me out. She's like, you know what? I think you're having a hard time in university. And I'm like, why is that? She's like, because nobody cares about you now. She's like, oh yeah, my mom is, yeah. And my mom is on it. She's like, nobody's coming to you. No one's like, oh my God, Amrit has the best hair. She has the best makeup. She has nice clothes. Nobody cares now. She's like, and now you don't know what to do. And I was like, oh, wow. She was right though. She was right. Yeah. So then I switched from psychology to business when I decided I didn't want to be a psychologist anymore. And then I guess I just got to be me. If I really think about it, then nothing mattered. Then it was just like, okay, let's just go to business school. Yeah.
Wow. I need this to be an HBO series. Like seriously, like young brown girl grows up in Canada. And like,
yeah. Yeah. That's why I think Never Have I Ever was so big for us.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The body hair issues. Then the first episode, the first minute of the first episode, I think she's talking about her arm hair.
Well, that leads me to my next question. Like in South Asian, so for me personally, as I've been going through my own beauty journey, obviously I'm looking back into my ethnic culture. And I was born in the States, so, second generation. And so looking at Korean culture, there are things that I understand and then things I don't understand because I didn't grow up or was born there. And then I think about like, okay, the history of Korea and like how that's really shaped beauty standards. So I'm curious to know in South Asian culture, like what are the beauty standards or myths around beauty? And like, has that impacted your understanding of beauty?
So I would say number one thing is light skin.
Colorism.
It is the holy grail. It doesn't matter what your weight is, what your teeth, how crooked they are. It doesn't matter. As long as your skin is super white is like the most coveted thing. And if you have light eyes, basically the closer you are looking European is like the most ideal. I was lucky again with my mom. I didn't know this was a thing in our culture. She didn't, even though she grew up like that, she never told me anything about that.
Wow.
She never told me to stay out of the sun. She never said that dark skin was bad or you shouldn't be in the sun because boys won't like you and nobody likes dark skin. She never said anything like that to me. So I didn't know. So I was just living my life, not thinking about these things. It wasn't until I moved to Toronto and then I met more of my family here. And then I kind of started like hearing things like they didn't want their like arms to be like too much on the window while they were driving because their arm would get dark and stuff. I was like, oh, that's bad. Like, I didn't know. Well, it's not that I should have known that, but I didn't know that people thought like that in any culture, actually. I remember knowing about it in like textbooks and learning about it, like more anthropologically like that, but not an actual like present life.
And then when you found out, did that change the way you thought about like your skin?
No, I was already older then. Like I was already in my 20s. So I didn't.
So you're just like, that's interesting or like.
I think at that age, it's almost too late to impact you.
Yeah.
I guess, because I already grew up like at that age. By then I was probably, let's say 23. So for 23 years, didn't think my skin was an issue. I knew being brown was an issue, but I didn't know that the range of brown was an issue in beauty, if that makes sense. What else? South Asian. So yeah, definitely the whiter your skin is best. Long hair. Like we're into more voluptuous shapes, like being thin is not really like cool for us because that means you're poor, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. That's why if you look at all of our art, I always feel like if you look at any culture and you go back into like the more ancient art, you'll see what the beauty standards were. So if you see ours, the faces are very white and the women are like, you know, full breasts and like tiny waist and like hips, and they're carrying like some pail of water, milk or something. Like that's the image. And then the big eyes and the thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned like the cat eye really originating from South Asia. And I don't know why I hadn't made that connection until you said that. Like I always knew that the strong eyeliner was a big part of your culture. But then when I think about like watching Bollywood films and certain scenes, that that is how they do it.
Yeah.
But like in modern culture in the West, we always just say cat eye.
Yeah. So it's actually called kajal. Kajal is the liner. Yeah. So it's just, you're just doing your liner. It's not a style of liner. It's just, that's all you do. That's why I don't know how to do any other liner. I'm either like all of it or nothing. I don't know how to do less.
It looks good on your face because you're from that culture.
Right.
Yeah.
It's meant to be like that. And then, so I also think like, okay, I've seen it in North African culture, and then I see it in the Latinx culture. And so it's so interesting how like different makeup styles derive from different cultures.
Yes. I mean, Egyptians did it as well. I would say maybe they were really heavy with it from what I've seen. Yeah.
But they never
also
get those
protectant, right? It protects the eyes too from the sun.
Oh yes, it does. Because what they were wearing wasn't like, you know, Maybelline. It was like it was like this thing that protects your eyes.
Yeah.
Like a clay
it's the soot from something. I can't remember.
Right.
My mom explained it to me because she still has it's my grandmother's kajal. My mom has it. And so, yeah, there's still some in there actually, which is really cool.
Wow. And then that's also really like how our features developed. Like a lot of our features develop because people immigrate into different lands. And so a lot of the features we have were protective measures. Like for me, I have monolids, and monolids for Asians that were moving toward like immigrating towards like the mountains, like going through the desert, like that monolid protected our eyes, our ancestors' eyes, from sand and from the sun. And that's why we have these eyes. And so when I learned about that, I was like, it changed the way I thought about beauty standards, beauty, my own face, you know.
Well, there's some Darwinism in there.
Totally.
Right? Right. I mean, it's the same thing for First Nations, Indigenous people who are further up north, right? Like their eyes also are very narrow, but like when that snow hits you, it's harsh, and the sun reflecting off the snow is very bright. So you can't really just have these like bright eyes open.
Right. Yeah. I also remember in biology class when we were learning about genetics, and it was like big B and little b, and little b was considered recessive. And that's how you could get like the blue-green eyes. And big B was called dominant, and that was like the brown and darker eyes. And my dad is blonde hair, blue-eyed. And I just remember being like, he's recessive, like that name, like dominant versus recessive. Like there's this order to it.
Yeah.
But then how it's expressed, like how all three of us grew up, it was almost like reverse. Like we felt like those features were the dominant within our culture and what we were supposed to strive to look like, when like genetically it had a different name. It was recessive. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, I was just reading an interesting article today about physical attraction between men and women. It was like a study, and they found out that men with light eyes were attracted to women with light eyes because of the recessive gene, because they knew their kids would have light eyes. And then men with brown eyes didn't care because it was the dominant gene. So it was just a little study, but I was like,
something to think about.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, Amrit, something that I really love about you and how I was immediately drawn to you was the way in which you educate your online community through social media and the kind of content you put out. It's very high energy. You really make it a point to make sure that people are excited about the information you're sharing and kind of hype up Chinese medicine. So I'm curious, you know, what that kind of does for you with your beauty story, whether it's something that's extremely fulfilling or draining. I mean, of course, it can always be a combination, and whether that adds to your story or almost like takes away from your own personal time to cultivate your beauty.
Being on Instagram makes me so happy.
Aw.
I love it. It is a saving grace for me. And I feel bad sometimes saying that, because I know for so many people it's quite the opposite, right?
Mhm.
It brings people down, but yet they're addicted to it and they have to be on it. I guess for me, and I always say, like, if I didn't have my own business, like, would I have an Instagram account? Like, maybe, but it wouldn't be about me. It would be about things I like art and like music and travel and things like that. It wouldn't be like me with my bike or like me over here. Um, but I think that, okay, for me, like, I'm an extrovert, and that
I was going to just ask, actually.
yeah,
I'm like, are you an extrovert?
yeah, majorly an extrovert, and I'm a Sagittarius on top of that. So I like need all the people and all the energy. And so being an acupuncturist is a complete opposite. It's 0% extrovert life. And so I actually struggled a lot at the beginning with that. So and it took me a long time to get on Instagram. I've only really been into it in the past like few years or so. And so it brought something to me that I was very much missing. And so that's why I think people are like, how do you do both? I'm like, that is very fulfilling for me. It gives me so much energy and happiness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I want to hire you. It is really, I mean, it's really draining for me. I don't know about you, Tamsin, but it's exhausting for me. And that's why when I see your content, I'm always like amazed. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, you can tell that Amrit's having fun with it. Like,
yes,
you know, it's like that energy is palpable even through the screen, that you're having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it depends, because I have multiple accounts. And so it's like I have multiple identities. And that's kind of how I am in my real life. It's like I have this group of friends and that group of friends.
Yeah.
And so I see for myself, sometimes it gives me energy, but it's really important. But I can also just, like, I don't spend that much time on it. Like, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about the content that I'm going to put out, because both of them are pretty educational based. But I post it and then I'm done. Like, I'll maybe scroll around occasionally, look at other people, but I honestly don't spend that much time, unless like I'm waiting for the bus or something, you know, like I'm not like looking at other people's, I see it as like a work thing. And so it's a strange thing, because it's like, I guess the way that I put out material, and I think maybe the same for both of you, because I think both of you show this personal side to it through and so I think that's how you grow this community. People think they know you, but it's really an asset.
Yeah.
I'm showing you just like this tiny little thing that I probably thought about months ago, right? And before I actually posted. So yeah.
I feel like Amrit shares quite like a good amount of things with her community, you know, like,
You're
and you get
open.
a really big mix of different things, whether it's clinical, TCM related, personal favorite products, reviews on something, social issues, local issues. Like, it's really diverse and dynamic. And I think that's neat because it pulls in like a big crowd. And then it gets all of those people to funnel in and take interest in Chinese medicine at the end of the day.
Thanks.
So you've done a great job.
Do you see it as a way as connecting with people, or do you see it more like you have to do this to stay connected?
I see. It's a way for me to connect with people. I don't feel like I have to do it. If I don't want to, I don't. And that's the other thing. I think people put like so much pressure on themselves. Like, oh my God, I have to post it. I have to post every day. I have to do a reel every day. And I'm just like, whoa, no, I'm not. Like, if you go on my feed, I don't even remember. It's definitely been a week. I was traveling. I do stories, but I'm not going to like sit there while I'm on vacation and spend 60 minutes and do a reel. I don't think so, unless I really wanted to. So for me, I feel like I'm able to keep a good balance with it. Yeah.
I actually have a question for both of you, because both of you are kind of in the similar field of this beauty wellness within Chinese medicine. And I've asked Paige this a few times, but I would love to hear from you, Amrit. You know, from your 6 Bay Beauty is very beauty focused, right?
Yes.
You've done courses and like this is what you do. But in your practice, it looks like that you do tend to see other patients as well. You're not strictly a facial acupuncturist. Am I correct? Or
I do see fertility would be my second like market, if you want to use that word, but most of my day, like 80-90% is actually facial acupuncture.
okay.
It is the
So
majority of my
being
practice.
a facial acupuncturist, has this changed the way you think about beauty? Like my thing is like, I've been fascinated with this field, but I also wonder if it makes you more beauty obsessed or like on your own face, like you have to look a certain way to represent this medicine or
Oh,
because you're just researching so many things, like you just become beauty obsessed and or youth obsessed. Maybe that's another word too.
I would say I must have already had that kind of mentality at the beginning, because when I had my cystic acne that I was dealing with for many years, which started right at the beginning of my career, um, I was very ashamed of myself because I was supposed to be an acupuncturist. So I'm supposed to look like happy and not have acne, because if you have acne, we know there's imbalance inside, right?
Mhm.
So I thought that people weren't going to trust in me. Like, well, why would I go see her? She can't even fix her own problems.
Yeah.
So that really was a big struggle for me at the beginning for many years. I would say
Did
at
you
least 4 years.
did you study it because of your own personal issues or just out of interest
Acupuncture in general, or you mean
or
cosmetic?
cosmetic?
I did use cosmetic to help with my acne, and I think that's how I started really getting into it, as it
Mm.
was healing my acne faster. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like, I think I need to start sharing this. And then people just started asking more. And then I would do it to one person, then they liked the results. And then their friend came in and, and then it just started spiraling. And that alongside Instagram was giving me a whole other side that I felt I was missing in my career, which was this kind of more like social fun side. Of course, it's lighter of an experience as a practitioner treating someone for cosmetic than it is treating someone for fertility or chronic pain or depression or, major digestive issues or something. So it was giving me this really nice balance of like, yeah, come on in. It was like girl talk and it was like needles, and like a few questions about like, your menstrual cycle or something was actually really good for me.
Yeah.
So that pressure was there because I felt I needed to look healthy. And then, like we
Yeah.
said earlier, healthy is beauty in a way. But being so deep in it now, do I feel like I need to look a certain way? No, I mean, okay, if I all of a sudden got acne again, it would be very devastating for me because the pressure, it would be there. I can't I can have my odd spots here and I can talk about them on Instagram. But if I had what I had back then, that would be really hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that.
Paige, is that the same for you? Like have this pressure of having to look a certain way because this is what you do?
I definitely think that it's there. I personally don't take that pressure on though, because I just don't have the bandwidth to do so. Like I don't have the time to pour into myself. I just don't have the capacity to really, really overthink that. And a lot of times, like, I don't, not that I look like disheveled, but there are a lot of times like I don't have time to brush my hair. Like I was thinking, I just came back from the clinic and I was like, oh, I didn't brush my hair. So there's like little things that I'm not able to keep up with. And I think that my patients are okay with that because I still they see and understand that I still give them a really deep, meaningful treatment with good results. And sometimes I'll joke around with them, like they'll say something and I don't know if it makes them feel comfortable, but the joke will be along the lines of like, don't worry, I'm not perfect either, kind of a thing. And then, so I mean, I think though, like Emrit has a much stronger presence online and like a much bigger following. So there's more attention and pressure there. And the way that her energy is online, like I think her beauty is like stands behind that energy. And I feel like my presence is, it's not this, it doesn't have that same energy. So I put less pressure on myself as a result. Yeah.
It's so interesting. This
I
is like a question
know.
I'm going to ask everybody that's
a
in the
good
beauty and wellness
question.
industry, because I think about this, you know, if like all, because that was one of my fears doing this podcast that I shared with Paige, is that we're going to do a podcast about beauty, decoding beauty on a multidimensional level. You know, we're going to do a lot of research on beauty. And so I've been reading books about the history of beauty, the history of makeup. Like, how did we get to this point where, you know, like gender makeup, right? And all of this, like, what does beauty really mean? And there's really good books, and like listening to podcasts. And I had this sudden fear, like, oh my God, what if we do this? And like, I just become beauty obsessed. And like season 4, I'm just getting plastic surgery.
Oh my God, I don't think so.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But like, what if I go into that extreme? Because it's just like I'm studying, learning, like reading up on this, and all I think about is how I look. And to be honest, like I think the first couple weeks, maybe a few weeks before launching this, I noticing myself a lot more. And that kind of freaked me out. And I was like, oh, I don't want to get to that point where I'm just more aware of how I look, because the whole point of this is to figure out if like beauty has to be more than just this physical thing.
Well, something, Tamsin, that you and I talk about when we talk about beauty is often just in regards to our faces. And I feel like both you and I have not really thought to include body in this, but I know, Amrit, that body image and your own struggles with it, past, and I want to check in with the present, is something that you share about. And Tamsin and I both want to pay more attention to the body aspect of beauty. And we see how you already have been integrating that into your story. So I'm just curious to hear where you are with that today and how things have evolved with your body and body image in terms of your beauty story.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was kind of always the same weight for a long time. And then when I went through the PTSD last year, I gained 15 pounds. So I'll just like, I'm also just going to like say my weight numbers. I feel like we shouldn't be so like, oh my God, I'm never going to tell anybody my weight. But anyways, I went up to 150. I think I went up to like 152 at one point. And I was just like, okay, this is getting out of control for me. What I know, because I know my frame and I know what my body is. And I know what is my healthy weight, because I had dealt with colitis so much. So I know when I start dropping too much, like I just know I've built my body back up so many times. I just know. And so going back to like what you were saying about the pressure of beauty, I was really embarrassed and I was really worried when I was going to start seeing patients again that I hadn't seen in a long time. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to notice that I gained weight? And then they're going to think something's wrong with me. And then are they going to want to keep coming to see me because they're like, oh, she must have really went through something. Maybe she shouldn't be the one treating me because she's dealing with her own stuff. I don't know if anybody really, I mean, I'm sure people noticed like I gained like 15, 20 pounds, but I don't know. I mean, I doubt anybody would have stopped coming to see me, but it did go through my mind every time someone would come in. And so when the gym started opening up, so this would have been August of last year, you know, then I started really going hard at the gym and I was able to drop like, you know, maybe 8 to 10 of that. And I'm not where I was before all these years where I was at my ideal healthy weight, but I'm like, all right. So I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. But yeah, like I did think about it for sure. And it did play a role. And when I was younger, I used to think about it way more than I think about it now. But I think also, I mean, this might be a controversial statement, but I feel like sometimes like with celebrities, because you know, I love my celebrities, but in a way they've made it easier because curvier bodies are now more accepted. It's not the straight model look only anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of good in a way. And then it also backfires also.
It's like a curvy that is still somewhat unattainable. It's like big boobs, tiny waist, big hips. And it's not I'm only saying this because I thought the same too. And then as I was doing research of like body positivity, difference between like body positivity, fat positivity, body awareness, like what are these differences in these nuanced terms? And I read this really interesting article about these models that were coming out and saying that they were considered plus size models. So I guess size like 8, 10, 12,
Which
right?
is crazy. How could
Yeah,
that be
right.
plus size? Yeah.
Right. But when they got hired, they would have to wear fat suits. And they said you can tell when you see our like ads. It's like, how can you have this bigger body but not have any fat, like not have your neck be bigger, not have your
Yes.
arms be bigger? And I never thought of that. So there's this group of models that are coming out. They're like, yeah, we're considered plus size models, but when we get on set, they make us wear fat suits. And that just blew my mind. And so I'm like Googling like plus size model like ads. And I'm like, oh my God, like I never realized how skinny their arms were. And then it's just, it's
Oh
this
my
like
God, it's
false
so
illusion.
true.
That's very true. Yeah.
See, mind blown, right?
Yeah. I think I grew up in a house, like it was just me and my brother. That's just the two of us. And in terms of siblings, and he used to read Adbusters magazine. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
It's like a anti-establishment kind of magazine, but it breaks everything down, like what corporations are doing, how they're manipulating things,
Oh, wow.
marketing, advertising. My brother, he's older than me. He would have these magazines and they'd be like all over. If I was like spying in his room, I would see these magazines. So I grew up with these magazines.
Yeah.
So I had my teen magazines, like you said, 17 and all that. And YM with like Tiffany Amber Thiessen on the cover and stuff. But like, I also had the Adbusters magazine. So, and my brother was learning Photoshop because he was in environmental design. So I learned at a really young age about these manipulated images. So I think that's why I don't also get affected the same way, because I already knew from when I was a preteen in grade 7, I already knew what was going on.
Wow.
Which was a blessing.
Yes. So parts of like the thing with your mom not sharing about skin color, and then you learning from your brother about editing, and like those two things seemed like pretty big influential parts of your childhood that allowed you to navigate areas where other people may have been really insecure.
There's also, sorry, can I just add one more story? Because it's interesting. I also used to work in a music store when I was 15 years old with a bunch of like really cute, older, like 18, 19-year-old skater boys.
Oh my God. You are literally saying my dream when I was in middle school, like work at Tower Records.
Yeah.
The cute skater boys.
Yeah. They were all hot. Every single one of them that walked through the door that got a job there. And it was like, I was so happy. I'm like, this is an amazing job. But so they were all like, they didn't listen to any top 40 pop. And I was like Miss Britney Spears, Hanson, Backstreet Boys, and but they would take like, so we would get a lot of promo posters. Very vividly, I remember this. Do you guys remember the Mariah Carey Rainbow album?
Yeah, with
the rainbow on her butt
and the white
lollipop. And they took that poster and they put it up in the bathroom and they drew her like a devil. I'll never forget it. And I was like, oh, not all guys like girls that look like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. I like these guys. I think they're hot and cool. And they don't like what I've been told that's pretty and hot. So it was a very interesting, those three things, like you said, my mom and my brother for sure. And then growing up, because I worked there for years since I was in high school through uni. So I was always seeing these hot guys that you would, want to think that like, like impress them. They're older, like, oh my God, they're so cute. But they didn't like what was being told as what was pretty. And now
they like,
I don't know who they would have liked. I guess they would have liked more like maybe punk rock chicks or something. I never asked them. I was just so amazed. I was just so like, this is so interesting to me. Paige, you're bringing this up for me. I'm like, wow, I was really protected in a way.
Yes. No, I know. You had these like really imprinting memories that you were able to carry with you all through like development and into young adulthood that made a big impact.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I'm speaking of music and everything. I'm curious, Tamsin and I are both curious about your love for hip hop culture and music in general, and how that's really been infused in you and who you are and how you relate to beauty as well through that lens.
I mean, music was always a big part of my life. I think because I grew up in a musical house in a way. My dad always is singing or listening to music all the time. And then, I was always listening to music. And so that's why working in the music industry, working in a music store first, and then working in the music industry as my previous career before being an acupuncturist, like that was a dream job for me. And I think that, I don't know, I feel like music, like it's a vibration. So it's a sound, right? So it's an energy. And I just feel like that has to be some way part of your health stories, some music of some kind. And I do think that music is really healing, and it can change your mood and your energy and motivate you or make you sad or cry or join you on wherever you are in your journey. And I don't know, I guess because that was such a first love of my life, and then acupuncture is the second, and who knows if there'll be a third and a fourth. But like, it was very important for me to kind of like use that lens, because my purpose here, or one of my purposes on this planet for me, is like, I'm supposed to make acupuncture like accessible, right? Like easy to understand. And music and pop culture and hip hop being a part of pop culture, especially now, gives me that language, right? It gives me a context to work under. And when I started doing it when I was younger, I think it was too early. I think people didn't really understand what I was doing, so I left it. But now I feel like it's just so natural. And now like doing wellness is cool now, right? So I mean, everybody's doing those crystals, whole thing.
I mean, that's how I connected with you, Amrit. Like, we connected years ago following each other on Instagram. And I think I found you because we both loved hip hop. And so it was like, oh my God, there's this other acupuncturist talking about hip hop, right?
Yeah.
To the point where it was like, oh no, she grew up with hip hop culture, right? Like, you're a sneakerhead, like, right? And so it's like, it's not just listening to music, it's like being exposed to this other culture. And like, I guess I wonder if that was sort of like this other protective mechanism of like beauty, because then you saw beauty in a different, I think when you listen, because I think we're around the same age, right? Like, I grew up with Britney and Sync and all that. But then I also grew up with 90s hip hop, which was like Foxy Brown, Fat Joe, like all of them, right? Remy and Eve. And it was like a strong women MC, Black women, right? And so it was this other sort of beauty that I was exposed to. And I think also growing up in New York, I grew up in a mostly Black and brown neighborhood. So my perception of beauty was different. And then I moved to a really white neighborhood. So it was like a culture shock. But I think like seeing beauty on that side, where it's like, it's so different than the blonde hair, cutesy Britney. Yeah. It was like, strong female presence, like just in your face, different bodies. And yeah,
I think that has something to do with it. I think also, rap and hip hop is a very grassroots movement from the culture. And it might be a stretch for some people to think about it, but like Chinese medicine kind of is too, right? Like grassroots music, barefoot medicine, like there are some parallels, and it's for the people. And so it's a kind of like a hard concept to think about, but I feel like the connection between the two.
Wow. I'm really we do like a debriefing episode after our guests. So I think cool. that this is something that at least I'm gonna be interested in debriefing.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around these skater boys. Like, whose posters were they putting up? Like, I cannot figure out.
Who would they have liked?
I like Avril
Lavigne.
No, because they would have thought she was a loser.
Yeah.
Right? Because she was like pop punk. She wasn't real punk. These guys were listening to like NoFX and like, I don't even know the band's names anymore. Yeah, like real punk music. They weren't gonna like Gwen Stefani. that would be a sellout. She would be considered
yeah.
A loser to them. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I guess maybe they didn't even like celebrities at all. Maybe they just like the chicks they went to like school and uni with.
Has that like, I guess like, and if this is too
Now I'm
personal,
gonna
you don't have to
message some of
answer.
them.
Oh yeah, if you're still in contact, I want to know too.
Yeah.
Like, and then I'm thinking like the boys that I grew up, I'm like, who did they like? Because the boys that I grew up were boys, hip hop and skater boys. Those were the two cultures: hip hop, graffiti, skater, right?
Oh, real hip hop.
And so my group, like my core group, I was the only girl in like the dudes, but I was like a girly girl. So like heels, mini skirt, running around with these graffiti dudes, sneakerheads.
Oh, wow.
And so they would say they didn't like those girls, but like they would hit on girls that look like that, like look like Britney,
There's
but
always that dichotomy with men. We want this kind of woman. We love strong women, but then you meet a strong woman and they're so scared.
Yeah. And so like growing up, like how much did the opposite sex play into your perception of beauty or like your idea of beauty for yourself? Or did they?
I think it did a lot when I was like younger, like I said, elementary. So I left downtown Winnipeg, moved to the suburbs. So anywhere from grade 3 to grade 9, I would say it was mostly white.
Yeah.
So, and those are very formative in a different way, right, than high school is. So they definitely, at least I thought, and what I saw, like they only liked white girls, but there was also only white girls. But again, nobody was ever going to like pick me for anything, like a dance or, so-and-so was a crush on Amrit. Like that was never going to be a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
And I just knew that.
Has that lingered on now as an adult, or you're just like,
no, I'd say.
You're like, no,
like
I have
everyone
a lot of
has a crush on me now.
I'm like, no. No. It's different now. But I would say with my beauty like story overall, like there is a lot of ups and downs, right? Like there's the down of junior high, then it was high school, then it was university, then it was Toronto music industry, then I was sick for 10 years with colitis and like tonsillitis and like just trying to figure out how to function with my body. And then I couldn't even think about, like, it didn't even matter to me if I was beautiful or not. I was just trying to live. I was trying to have a regular digestive system. And then I got it back, and then I had the acne, and then it went down again. And then I healed the acne. And ever since I would say 33 onwards, it's been pretty leveled out. Yeah. So, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's been an issue with the guys, I guess, like in the past, like since I've lived here, probably, I guess I would say, or since my acne's been better for sure.
Yeah. So Amrit, we ask guests at the end of our episodes what their beauty legacy is, meaning what do you hope to leave behind in terms of beauty or your own beauty story, or what do you want to impart on your following?
That like truly, like actually everyone is beautiful. And the way you speak about your friends and your family members, however you define any of that, and the people you love, you would never say anything negative to them about the way they look, the way you would about yourself. We speak to ourselves so differently. So I think that it's time for us as women to treat others the way we like pump them up. And like, we would never say like, oh my God, you have hip dips. Like you would never say that to your friend. So why do you say that to yourself? So that's what I mean. Like, I think it's time for us to just like, let that all go and like treat ourselves the way we treat like our besties, whoever our besties are in our life. So we can just like break these barriers down. And like, that's why I always do that Shen, no Shen thing. Because it's like, well, who's really beautiful? Like, are these celebrities beautiful? Like, but are there the people with Shen beautiful? It's the people with Shen, really. Right. And that comes from within. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So we'll have, show notes that can help the audience learn where to find you. But we also want to give you the opportunity to share if you have any upcoming projects, and, you know, other places where people might be able to learn more from you?
I live on Instagram, so you can find me there at 6babe beauty. So 6 the number BABE beauty. That's also my website, 6babebeauty.com. And I'm also on TikTok sometimes, which is Babe Face Skincare.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Oh my God, this was
great.
amazing. Can we just
Thank
we do
you.
this without a podcast? I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I wanna
right, just
talk
like a
to you guys
weekly
all the
combo.
time.
We should do a
So great.
follow up with Amrit and then those skater boys. It'd be like a reunion. Bring Susie along too.
Yeah,
Susie, come
yeah.
on down.
Oh
All
my
right. Well,
gosh.
thank you, Amrit.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having me.
thanks for being with us and chatting
course.
with us. Okay.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.